So today I'm going to show you how to translate your reference grading to your image without using any presets, and also creating a preset later using Adobe Lightroom Classic. Because if you are moving from the mobile version of Lightroom like me to Lightroom Classic, it's totally different, it's much more complex, and yeah, it can be very overwhelming, especially to new users. And also I learned Lightroom by doing this a lot, so I hope this will help you. So I have this reference image that I found on Pinterest. I'll link it on my description, I found this image to be quite nice, so I'm going to use it as a reference. Now click on the RA button here, reference and active, and we're going to drag and drop it to the reference panel. Or you can just right click and set this reference. That's totally doable. And you can see the reference and active here, and if you set this like this, you just drag and drop your image to the active panel, and boom, you have two images side by side. It can make grading easier. So now for the first step, I'm just going to do some basic adjustments here just to create a balanced image. Because you see in this image on the histogram, it's on the darker side, so I'm just going to create the base grade first. Just correcting the colors, correcting the exposure and all the things like that. So I'm just going to add the exposure, turn down the highlights, and amping up the shadows later. Because that's basically what I'm doing on every single image that I edited. That makes sure that you have the most detail out of your image, so you can see what is going on in the image. So now, after some basic correction, this is by no means the final grade. And you can see on the histogram here, it's quite balanced right now, even though it's still lacking on the right side or the highlights. But we cannot do much with the highlights because we have that super bright light on the top. And you can see on the reference image, there's only several colors popped out on that image. So yeah, we're going to play around with saturation and vibrance here. I think the saturation is already pretty good. And we're going to just adjust the saturation and luminescence hue of each colors in this image. So if you see on the reference image, there's only several colors that pops out: red, orange, yellow, and the others we're just gonna kill it for now. You can see only red, orange, and yellow are prevalent on the right image. I'm going to just further adjust it just to make sure that it looks similar to the reference. Play around with the temp because I think the reference has a slight blue tint on the shadows actually. So yeah, just play around with that and see how which sliders affect your image. That's actually the best way to learn Lightroom. Just play around with sliders. Okay, so now I'm going to add back the blue just a little bit, probably here. And then we're going to the tone curve here. But later I will just adjust the blue just a little bit more. Okay, so we're good to go, and now we're playing with the tone curve. Yeah, okay, more clarity. Yeah, that's how you edit in Lightroom. You see something that is not really done yet, and then you got easily distracted. Okay, so now we're going through the tone curve. See each channel first, how they affect your image. Let's see here, red, not really a fan of. Green now. Just play around with this and I'll show you how each curves affect my image. So you have a basic knowledge of what each curve does. Okay, so now we're going back to the RGB. We're going to darken the shadow because you see on the reference it's pretty dark actually, shadow. And we're going to return the midtones to where they were. And I'm going to add a little bit of this, the leftmost slider or the actual shadows, so that it's higher than the middle shadow point that we already created before, or at least similar. It gives you a faded black kind of look that I'm really a fan of. But if you're not a fan of it, just don't do that. Okay, I'm just playing around with the haze to see what this is going to affect my image. But I think, yeah, it doesn't need any dehaze. Okay, so now, because you see that the sky is pretty blown out on the reference, we're just gonna add a little bit of the highlight. Just a little bit. And you can see that, yeah, it has still a lot of noise, but the reference also have a lot of noise because probably the grittier look, so it's fine. I'm going to give the shadows just a slight blue tint. Okay, it's too much actually. We're going to return the midtones because we only want the blues to affect the shadows, not our midtones. So, okay, so just a little bit like that. Probably a little less, so we're going to play around with the blue sliders or any other color sliders here. Okay, we're going to pop out the red, orange and yellow now. Yeah, I think this is nice enough for red and orange, and now for yellow, yeah, this is fine. We're not going to make this image look similar to the reference because it's a reference. We're not going to copy all of the things. We're not actually stealing it. We just make it as a reference. So yeah, I'm sorry. I got some thumbnails to make. Okay, so in this case, the sky and the road is unbalanced, but still more balanced compared to our image here, because you see that the light is really strong. So I'm going to use the grade width filter to just even out the lighting a little bit more. So yeah, I just okay, this is not the right slider because it has no detail at all, so don't use the highlights there. I'm just going to adjust the exposure here just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to put it out. Just play around with the filter and see how each filters, you see there's two filters there actually, grade width and radial. Just see how each filter affects your image. Usually grade width filter is used to even out the lighting of an image, but while radial is used to just make something pop out even more. Like you have an object in the middle of the image, you want to have a little bit of a vignette. That cannot be achieved by regular vignette settings. Okay, so now gradient filter is done, and we see here probably just a little more adjustment, so we can just yeah, I'm just playing around with a little bit. Probably it's just too much blue, but yeah, I think it's already nice. But okay, a little bit of exposure cannot hurt. Yeah, just that much, so we can still see a lot of details here, because you see on the shadows it is still too dark. But we can still see something, and yeah, I'm going to show the shadow clipping, no blue tint, so yeah, fine. I mean blue markers, because you know shadow clippings are blue markers. Okay, you can see the before and after here. We already applied the style of the reference image, in my opinion. Again, photography editing is all about your taste, so yeah, I think it's already quite nice. And now I'm going to create a preset here. It's a totally optional step, but it will sure help save some time in your next edits, especially if you have a lot of image to grade. So now I usually left the exposure setting out, because you know each and every image has different exposure conditions, but if you want to leave it, it's fine. I'm not going to left it there. Just rename it whatever you want to name it. And you cannot put filters in the preset, that's the thing. That's why I prefer to correct my exposure and using filters and also sliders outside of the preset. Preset is not your last step. It's actually your first step. Okay, so now let's see how this preset works. I'm going to reset this image and apply the preset here. Okay, you see it's dark. But that's because I don't put the exposure setting up. You can just add the exposure after applying the preset, and yep, that's it. You can see pretty similar, but of course not as balanced as before because I don't apply the graded filter. Okay, so we're going back to the filtered version of this one. Okay, so and now just a little more adjustments. Okay, I think it's already good enough. So yeah, always take your time when grading an image. Make sure that it looks quite similar to the reference. Probably still too much blue, but yeah, I'll decide later on. I'm just going to see here if I missed something. Okay, so that's basically it. You already used the basic tone curves color panel, so it surely helps to understand what each slider does. Oh yeah, I forgot to add some noise reduction here. Probably on the face you can see a lot of noise actually. Just a little bit. Don't be too extra with noise reduction. Okay, my laptop's lagging. Don't be too extra with noise reduction and sharpening here. Don't be too crazy. Just add enough of it. So that's it. That's how you translate a grading of your reference image of choice to your image. Hope you learned something from this video. Like, comment, and subscribe if you like it. Check out my Instagram for more images like this.